Hello everyone, welcome back. We're back with week 26, if I'm correct, of our power ranking series, and this is going to be the first playoff power rankings. As we're doing our first power rankings video just before the playoffs. Now there have already been a couple of games to have started, but going into the playoffs, I'm going to give you my top 8 teams and my 2 honorable mentions heading into playoff action. We'll get to all of the updates. There's also major changes coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never go to without you guys, so if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. It really is to upload our channel, and we're on the road to 500 subscribers. Don't forget to leave a comment. So in today's video, we got week 26 of our power ranking series, and we've got our first power rankings entering playoff action. So we saw the regular season end last week. We're taking this video on Tuesday morning, so we've already seen the first 3 days of playoff action. So some of these power rankings might have shifted from over the past little while, but I am going to give you my power rankings entering the playoff landscape. So basically as of Saturday afternoon, and I'll give you for the playoffs, at least for the first round, I'm going to have 8 teams make my power rankings with 2 honorable mentions. So that'll mean that 6 playoff teams will always be out. And then once teams get eliminated, they'll go lower, lower. We'll probably have like a top 4 power rankings for round 2, and we'll go lower and lower. So for this time frame right now, entering the playoffs, I have 8 teams making my power rankings and 2 honorable mentions. So we'll get to all of those here. So my 2 honorable mentions are 2 Western Conference teams who both finished 3rd in their respective divisions and are going to be heading on the road to start their series. And that is the Edmonton Oilers and the Colorado Avalanche. Now, both these teams have really solid last little bits. The Oilers didn't have a great start to the season, but had a really good middle, and then had a slow end to the season, which is why they did finish 3rd in the Pacific behind Los Angeles and Vegas. They do get the Los Angeles Kings in the first round. And just last night we saw the Edmonton Oilers come from behind to almost win, but they did wind up losing to LA 6-5, so it was a very entertaining game. They did win a couple of games to finish up the regular season, but they are the team who I'm going to have as my first honorable mention. Well, my second honorable mention is the Colorado Avalanche. After starting the season 0-4-0, they wound up making the playoffs as the 3rd team in the Central, which is actually very impressive. We're not able to catch up to Dallas or Winnipeg, but 3rd in the Central Division is nothing to scoff at. They started the playoffs out with a win over the Dallas Stars, and after that, last night, they lost in overtime, so that series is 1-1, heading to Colorado, so we'll see if Colorado can take that 2-1 series lead. But like I said, they had a really good stretch entering into the postseason, going on a heater to leapfrog teams like Minnesota to get into 3rd in the Central, and that's why they are 2nd in honorable mentions. So my 2 honorable mentions to start out the playoff portion of my power rankings series are the Colorado Avalanche and the Edmonton Oilers. And now going over to my top 8 power ranking teams. So the 8th spot in my power rankings this week might be a surprise to some people, but I'm putting the Montreal Canadiens in there. The Canadiens have been on a heater ever since the Four Nations. They've been one of, if not the hottest team in the NHL. Now the Habs have been looking really good. They're going to be going to Washington in their first round series. They already lost game 1 in overtime to the Capitals, so it wasn't a great start to their first round series, but they went on a heater just to make the playoffs and beat out teams like Columbus, the Rangers, and the Islanders. And because of that awesome stretch to go into the playoffs, I'm putting them as my 8th team in my power rankings. Offensively, teams clicking: Suzuki, Dvorak, Gallagher, Anderson, Caulfield doing really good offensively. Defensively, Matheson, Savard, and Hudson doing really good defensively, and in net, Montembeault and Dobes continue to be really good goaltenders. So all in all, Habs are looking really good, and that's why they're 8th in my power rankings. 7th in my power rankings this week is the Dallas Stars. They had an awful stretch entering the playoffs. They lost 7 straight. They lost 8 straight if you include their opening game loss to the Colorado Avalanche in that first round series. They did win in overtime, however, yesterday to even up the series, but still, because of that sour stretch to end the year, I am going to put the Stars as my 7th team entering the playoffs on my power rankings chart, but still, they are a really lethal team. They did finish 2nd in the Central Division. They were one of the top teams in the Western Conference, so I'm not going to put them completely out of my power rankings, but they do fall a little bit from where they were the last few weeks. Offensively, though, this team's still clicking. Hintz, Duchesne, Rantanen, Marchment, and Sagan are doing really good offensively. Defensively, CC, Petrovic, and Harley doing pretty good defensively. And in net, Andre and the Smiths have continued to do really good in net. So all in all, solid week there from the Stars. They are 7th in my power rankings. 6th in my power rankings this week is another Eastern Conference team who finished as the second seed in their respective division, and that is the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Lightning had a really solid finish to the year. They were able to keep pace for most of that time with the Toronto Maple Leafs for top spots in the Atlantic. Didn't wind up coming away with the Atlantic Division title, but they did still finish second, so they will have a home playoff series against their arch rivals in Florida. So this is going to be a really interesting series between Tampa and Florida, but like I said, Tampa went on a heater to finish out the season. They had a really solid stretch, and that is why I'm going to put them as my 6th team in my power rankings entering the playoffs. Offensively, teams still clicking. Kucherov, Gensel, Paul, Point, Hagel, all doing really good offensively. Defensively, Hedman, Perbix, Chernak doing really good defensively, and Vasilevsky and Johansson and net are still a really solid tandem. So all in all, decent things there from the Bolts. That is why they are 6th in my power rankings. Now entering the top 5 of my power rankings for this week. So the 5th team in my power rankings is a team who looked lethal in their opening game, but also had a heater of a season and were able to match their single season win total, and that is the Los Angeles Kings. The Kings, who had finished 3rd in the Pacific year after year and had to go to Edmonton, finally got more points than the Oilers and are now able to host the Oilers in a first round series instead of having to go to them. The Oilers are a banged up team, and the Kings were able to narrowly and a nail biter come away with a 6-5 win in their first game. But even before then, the Kings finish out the regular season with a very solid stretch, and that is why I'm putting them as my 5th team in my power rankings. They are looking lethal, and if you guys haven't checked out my Stanley Cup preview, spoiler, I did pick the LA Kings to win the Stanley Cup this year, so if you want to go check out the full bracket, I'll link it up in the YouTube cards. But the Kings, I think, are going to be a very scary team to face, and that's why they are 5th in my power rankings. Offensively, this team is still clicking. Fiala, Kempe, Kuzmenko, Kopitar, Danault, all looking really good offensively. Defensively, Clark, Anderson, and Edmondson doing really good defensively, and in net, Riddick and Kemper have been really good for Los Angeles. So all in all, solid week there from the Kings. Open their series with a win. That's why they're 5th in my power rankings. 4th in my power rankings this week is the Atlantic Division winner, and a team was hosting one of the wildcard teams, and that's the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Leafs had to go on a really good stretch to end the season just to beat out Tampa and Florida for top spot in the Atlantic, but they were able to and won the Atlantic Division for the first time in their franchise's history, and now they have a date with the Ottawa Senators in a Battle of Ontario first round matchup. They already won game 1 back over on Sunday in convincing fashion, so we'll have to wait and see if they could potentially sweep this series. I picked Ottawa to win, but Toronto is still a very solid team, and I would not be one bit surprised if the Leafs did wind up taking that series. So Leafs were able to win the Atlantic Division. They have a tall task ahead of them, but they are a really good team. That's why they're 4th in my power rankings. Offensively, teams clicking. Nice. Tavares, Nylander, Matthews, Marner, all looking really good offensively. Defensively, Oliver, Ekman Larson, Riley, and Carlo doing really good defensively. And in net, Wool and Stolarz have been great. So really good goaltending, really solid defense. They won game 1 of their series, and they are 4th in my power rankings. 3rd in my power rankings, and winning the Pacific Division for yet another year is the Vegas Golden Knights. The Golden Knights out of the Pacific Division about a week ago, so they really didn't have to win very many games. They finished the season with 110 points, which is more than I thought they would have during the preseason predictions I put out. So Vegas had a really solid season. They started out, like we talked about in our recent game recap video, with a 4-2 victory over Minnesota in their first game. They're going to have a couple of games in the very near future, so we'll see how they fare against the Minnesota Wild, but I picked them to win that series, and they are a really lethal team. That's why I have them as my 3rd team in my power rankings. So Vegas is doing really good. Offensively, his team is clicking. Hurdle, Dorofiev, Howden, Carlson, Stone, all looking really good offensively. Defensively, Hanifin, McNabb, Haig doing really good defensively. And in net, both Hill and Samsonov have been doing pretty good. So all in all, Vegas, still a really solid team. Won the Pacific Division again, have a 1-0 series lead in their opening round series, and that's why I had them at my 3rd team in my power rankings. 2nd team in my power rankings, and having won the Eastern Conference, entering the playoffs, is the Washington Capitals. The Capitals won the Eastern Conference quite handedly, were able to win the Metro Division. Didn't win the President's Trophy, but that team is still a very lethal team. They showed how much of a juggernaut they were all season, and even though they didn't have the greatest of finishes finishes to the season and putting them as my second team in my power rankings entering the playoffs, because this team is a very scary team. Their offense is amongst the best. They have two really good goaltenders. Their defense is stellar. They have a date with the Montreal Canadiens in the first round series, only the second time those two teams have ever played in the playoffs. But still, this team is a really solid team, and that is why I have them as the second team in my power rankings. The Capitals, even though they didn't have the greatest of stretches to finish out the year, did open the series against the Montreal Canadiens with a win. They currently lead that series 1-0 after an overtime win thanks to Ovechkin, who's having himself a career season. But still, that's why I am putting them the Capitals as second in my power rankings. Offensively, this team is clicking. Ovechkin, Strome, Beauvillier, Radish, and Dubois all looking really good offensively. Defensively, Chikrin Sandin and Trevor Van Riemsdyk doing pretty good defensively. And Annette Lindgren and Thompson have continued to give them stellar goaltending. So all in all, a solid week there from the Caps. Open the series with a 1-0 lead over the Montreal Canadiens, won the Eastern Conference. They are my second team in my power rankings. My number one team, coming back after being the number one team last week in my power rankings, is the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets won the President's Trophy. The Jets won the West. The Jets won the Central Division. They were the best regular season team this year, which is absolutely fantastic. The Jets had one of the best seasons they have had in their history. They got, I think, 55 plus wins. They finished off the season with, I think it was like a winning streak. They already have a 2-0 series lead over the second wildcard team in St. Louis. So even though they've been close games, Connor, Scheifele, Hellebuck have been leading that team to victory in the first two games in Winnipeg. So the Jets look scary. They look like a very dominant team. If they hadn't won the President's Trophy, they would have probably still been my Stanley Cup favorite, but I still don't think that the President's Trophy winning team can make it to the Stanley Cup final. So even though I did predict against them in my Stanley Cup predictions, they are a very lethal team, and they finished out the season well. They're going into the playoffs well. They already have a 2-0 series lead. That's why they are the top team in my power rankings. Offensively, teams clicking like we talked about. Connor, Scheifele, as well as Jared Anderson-Dolan, Iafallo, Lowry, all looking really good offensively. Defensively, Shen, Pionk, and Morrissey looking really good defensively. And Annette, Comrie, as well as Hellebuck, who's actually playing well in the playoffs this year, have looked great in net. So all in all, the Jets finished the year as the best team in the NHL. They already have a 2-0 series lead in their playoff series, and that is why they are the number one team in my power rankings entering the playoffs this year. So definitely, those are my power rankings entering the playoffs in the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. Those are week 26 of my power rankings. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on what you think. Did I put anyone too high? Did I put anyone too low? Would you put Colorado, Edmonton as honorable mentions? Would you have Montreal in your top 8? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on what you think and what you would change if you had to do power rankings entering the Stanley Cup playoffs. Definitely your thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. That is all I'm going to talk about for today. Remember to like this video, and if you really liked it, remember to subscribe down below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never do this without you guys, so if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. It really helps support the channel, and we're on the road to 500 subscribers. Don't forget to leave a comment. I also do a blog to news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that, so check that out. The link's down in the description below. Can't wait to see you guys all for next video. See you guys soon.